Good morning, everyone. It's Liz from West Star Tarot and West Star Health and Healing. And this morning I am here to talk to you about cardstock. And I'm doing a VR to Casper at Boy Diviner's video on cardstock. Are you a cardstock snob? And I think I am. Yeah, I am. I don't know if it holds me back or not, but yeah. So I was thinking about cardstock and thinking about the decks that I like to use and the kinds of cardstock those decks have. And what is it exactly that goes into cardstock that makes me like or dislike? So I thought that it has to appeal, the cardstock has to appeal to my senses, to the touch, to the sight, to the look of it, to the sound of it. Because sometimes cardstock just has this delicious, like, I don't know if you can hear that, but it just makes this sound, this swooshing sound when you kind of rub it together, and it just delights the senses. So that is all part of what goes into cardstock. In addition, for me, and I think other people mention this too, it's how do the cards shuffle? So bad cardstock can really negatively influence a deck's shuffleability. And for me, I have really small hands, and so I can't shuffle a deck the normal way, a regular size tarot deck. My hands are just too small. I see folks on videos shuffling decks in that normal way and bridging them, and I'm so envious. I just can't do that. So mainly what I do is what I call a sideways shuffle. So I have to take the deck and hold it sideways in order to shuffle it. And so because of that issue, certain kinds of cardstock really are difficult and make it impossible for me to shuffle. And I do like to riffle shuffle. I grew up in a card playing family, and so I'm used to shuffling playing cardstock and bridging it, and shuffling and bridging, and that's just so satisfying and sensual and pleasing to the senses, and I love that. And it's hard for me to do that with most tarot decks because I have such small hands. Oh well. So I do think that for me, size matters. Size plays into cardstock, and I know size isn't really exactly cardstock, but because I think cardstock and shuffleability are related, I'm going to pull size into this video because for me size has to do with shuffleability, and there's just something sort of gratifying and satisfying being able to have a deck that shuffles well. And so I recently got, I have the large size Next World Tarot, but I recently got this, travel size one. And this I can hold the way normal people hold a regular size tarot deck. And I can actually shuffle and bridge. And man, I love that. So for me, this is a deck I probably will be using the smaller size one more frequently because of my ability to shuffle it. The thing is, when decks are really big, like really big oracle ones, they actually are a lot easier to shuffle sideways. So sometimes really big cards is actually easier than the normal traditional size tarot cards. Another deck where size really plays into being able to shuffle is this one, the Magnum Opus by Robert M. Place. And because this is, it's not square, but it's closer to squareness than most tarot decks, I can actually shuffle it the long way, but I can also shuffle it the sideways way. Oh, this is delightful cardstock. Not only is it wonderful to shuffle, but it has that lovely sound that when you, I know it's not, the mic isn't picking this up, but oh, it just makes this lovely sound when you go through the deck. It just makes that wonderful swishing sound, and I love that. This is really lovely cardstock. It's matte. The cards are nice to photograph. They look beautiful in a spread. They're kind of bendy, but they snap back, and I find this to be lovely cardstock. I'm quite enjoying the cardstock on that deck. And so I mentioned with cardstock, there are several different things. Yes, I want to be able to shuffle it. As I said, the sight of it, so I don't like super overly glossy. I like to see kind of a little bit more matte. And then there's just the feel of it. So this is the La Corte dei Tarocchi by Anna Maria Donofrio. And I can just sit here and pet this deck. The cardstock it's thick. It's really not great for shuffling, but it makes that lovely swishing sound, and it just feels so good. I could just play with this deck and hold it and look at the cards and not even use it. The cardstock is just, it's unique. I haven't seen another deck with this kind of cardstock, and I think it really is awfully thick for shuffling, but in terms of the look of the cards and the feel of the cards and the sound of the cards, it's absolutely lovely. So that's a really thick deck. And then for thin decks, so this is the Indigo Alchemist Tarot by Heather Blumenthal. And man, when I got this deck, I mean, it is so thin and bendy. I am really afraid that this deck is not going to hold up well at all. But it's so thin that not only can I shuffle it sideways, I can bridge it. And I never really have that experience with decks, and I miss that. This cardstock, though, is just way too thin. I would prefer not to be able to bridge it and just have cardstock that is not quite so thin. I'm afraid this is not going to last. Already I can see, let's see, you could see, look at all that chipping. And I haven't used this deck a tremendous amount, so it's a little sad. It's so thin. Another deck that is quite thin is this Carol Herzer. It's the Starlight Illuminated, and it is Carol hand paints these decks, and then she laminates them, so they are rather shiny, but I don't mind it. And I have to say, this is really thin cardstock, but if you look here, no chipping. And I have used this deck a real lot, and I can do the sideways shuffle with it very easily, and I enjoy shuffling this deck and using this deck. I've had this deck maybe about 5 years, but I have a friend of mine who has had one of Carol's decks, I think he said for over 20 years, and he said it looks brand new. So I know that there's some controversy about the lamination of these decks, Carol's decks, but I think it's fine. I don't mind it at all. I think it makes it for a nice, sturdy, long-lasting deck. So that's the thin cardstock. I did one of the thicks. This might hurt by Isabella Rotman, and this is matte. It makes that. I mean, when you go through it, let me just. Can you? I don't know if you can hear. I probably shouldn't even bother doing this because you probably can't pick it up. But it has that sound, that swishing sound, and this has this wonderful holographic gilding on the side, which again isn't really cardstock, but kind of, sort of. And this one shuffles okay sideways. But I do like the cardstock on this. It is a little bit thicker. I do like the matte. The colors and the images are so crisp and show up so beautifully. So this is another deck whose cardstock I like quite a bit. Another classification of cardstock is linen cardstock. I don't have Pagan Otherworlds, but I know people absolutely love that cardstock. But I do have the Anima Mundi by Megan Weirweden. And this deck, for me, for a sideways shuffler, it shuffles like a dream. So I am a fan of the linen cardstock. It doesn't make that swishing sound really the way some of the more matte cardstock does, but it is a dream for a sideways shuffler. And I know there are a few of us with small hands out there that have this problem. So I'm quite a fan of the linen cardstock. It really shuffles beautifully. And I can imagine for those of you with normal size hands that shuffle the deck normally and then can bridge it, it must be quite a lovely experience. So another deck I wanted to talk about that I absolutely love is this deck called The Relative Tarot. This is by Carrie Paris. And this cardstock, when I backed this deck on, I think it was a Kickstarter. I don't think it was Indiegogo, but oh my gosh, when I opened it up, it shuffles so nicely, and it makes that swishing sound that is just so pleasing, and it feels, oh, it just has this beautiful feeling to it. I absolutely love the sight, the sound, and the texture and the shuffleability of this deck. It's really, really lovely. It shuffles so nicely. And I feel like it's going to hold up really well. So those are cardstocks that I really like and that I really enjoy using quite a bit, and that work for me with my smaller sized hands. A cardstock that gets thumbs down is this one. And this is the Hay House edition of Lightseers by Chris Ann. And I like this deck quite a bit. I think the artwork is beautiful. I have the Kickstarter version as well. I'm not crazy about that cardstock either. It's just really thick. It's just this one. This is the Hay House. I didn't get one with all the issues that people have, but I mean I can't shuffle this deck. And then when I try to overhand it, it clumps. So it's really hard to shuffle. And I have to say that I did edge it in a variety of colors. I have to say that influences the experience of using the deck. And I think when the cardstock is really poor, either way too thin or way too thick or way too shiny or clumps, you don't use the deck as much, or it just isn't as pleasant or pleasurable experience using the deck. So it's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes. So cardstock needs to appeal to the senses, the sight, the sound, the touch, the tactile experience of it, the flexibility of it, the shuffleability of it, and for me, because I have small hands, the size of it is influencing how I work with it and how I feel about it. So thank you to Casper, the boy diviner, for this great VR, and I've enjoyed watching other folks. Oh, and I wanted to mention Spirit Keepers by Benabel Wen, yes, is amazing cardstock. I didn't bring that deck out because I thought that so many other people were mentioning it that I didn't need to, but I do want to at least say how much I enjoy the cardstock on that deck. It's really beautiful. So that's it. Hope you all are enjoying summer, and happy Lammas, one and all. Enjoy the bounty of the earth. I hope your harvests are plentiful and that you're enjoying this beautiful time of year here in the Northern Hemisphere. Blessed be.